Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Wherever you are, thanks for joining the AI for Good Global Summit. All year, always online. Like most of the world, AI for Good Global Summit has gone digital this year, but it allows us to reach even more people all year. AI for Good Perspectives offers expert insights, global visions, and shared solutions for the whole AI for Good community worldwide. Earlier, I was joined from North America by two special guests, Amir Banifatemi and Richard St. Pierre, to talk about the Global Data Pledge. That's Amir Banifatemi from the XPRIZE Foundation in Los Angeles. Hello to you.
Hello, Chris.
And Richard St. Pierre from C2 International, who's joining me from the Parkway in Canada on a glorious afternoon. Hello, Richard.
Hello to you too.
So the Data Pledge is a crucial part of this whole summit this year. Go ahead, Richard. You're there in front of me in that beautiful background. What's this all about?
So in the first part of the year, with the pandemic hitting us worldwide, we saw many things that could have been handled better. Many things that were done good as well. But one of the things that was obvious was what I call now data mismatch between what was happening as far as reality and how we could actually measure that reality happening, unfolding in front of us. Just measuring the number of cases around every single country was different when you looked at the news in the evening, right? And when you go down to all the tools that we have from AI algorithms all around the world that were not misused, they were simply not inputting the right data in order to process it correctly. So that Amir and I had a conversation and we said, how about we launch a global challenge on data? So not storing data, but pledging data. So when there's a crisis, a pandemic or the otherwise, we would be able to share data and relevant data when it comes about. That was the initiation of what we called the Global Data Pledge that we're happy to launch at the AI for Good Summit this year in 2020.
Amir?
Thank you, Chris. Yes, Richard explained very well what the Global Data Pledge is about. I can probably add some context behind it. In the 4 years of AI for Good Summit, and following the AI XPRIZE that we launched in 2015, we've learned that many communities and many solutions that need machine learning and AI would rely on data. That data is not always available, and when available is not always sustainable, it's not always private, the provenance of it is not always known, and data capture and sustainable data costs money. So how can we make sure that solutions that are built with machine learning and AI will have a sustainable life behind just a test or a validation or a demonstration? So that narrative led us to understand what needs to be done in terms of standardization. We brought it to the ITU. We talked about it multiple times during the AI for Good Summit in 2017, 18, and 19. And then in January, we initiated this global initiative with ITU and many other organizations called the Initiative on AI and Data for the Common Good, meaning that we need to share globally what we have to benefit others, and collaboration is key here. But how do we do that is the main question. So we started with data, and there are today more than a few hundred at least open data portals globally that are not fully utilized, and some of them contain huge amount of information, and some of them could be improved. And many organizations have a key to data that is extremely useful. We've seen with the pandemic how pharmaceutical and research labs came together and for once took an IP vacation on sharing data and collaborated together by sharing that data. So following that example, how can we in many areas, health, education, agriculture, climate, mobility, racial justice, in every other domain, find a way to share meaningful data together to advance solutions that are based with AI. So the Global Data Pledge is a pledge, is a promise that when times are important and when it is needed, we're ready to share data if it's meaningful and useful. So it is a very simple effort, and we're going to be announcing this effort during the AI for Good Summit in September of 2020. And we plan to launch the pledge in January officially.
Now, it's a pledge. You can't force anyone or organizations or NGOs or companies or philanthropists. So how do you do it?
Well, as Amir was saying, sorry, Amir.
Go ahead, Richard.
As Amir was saying, and some listeners here might be asking themselves, well, there's open data source everywhere. There's more than 1,600 of them registered around the world. But the point is that 60% of them were never used. Part of it, not because they're not doing a good job, on the contrary, it's because they're likely unknown, or the people that might use it, the people that might pledge ultimately, do not know that they exist. So our purpose with the pledge is to make sure that there's a collective goal of managing and distributing data on the massive scale. So we will not, the pledge is not about holding data or storing data. It's about committing to communicate that data, to share that data, to collectively benefit that data if certain circumstances happen. So we're not going to be held to the privacy issues and all those things which are relevant, but this is not part of the pledge. The pledge is about committing data when an occurrence happened. And then the people, the stakeholders that will require the data and issue the data will figure out the way of exchanging that data that is satisfactory to both of them. So the pledge is a pledge. It is not the means of the technical abilities of sharing data between two people. Amir, you might want to complement.
Chris, the pledge effectively is not something mandatory, and a number of organizations are already pledging data. I mentioned pandemic and research for tests and vaccines, but also a number of cities and communities are sharing their data about the mitigation, about the interventions they're doing in terms of how they comply with the difficulties in pandemic. Those could be how often they close schools, how often they close businesses, what mitigation effort they do to help society go back to business. So this is data, and this is happening today globally. In this case, what we're saying in the Global Data Pledge is about assuming that you have confidence in privacy, sharing of data, the technology, and the usage of data. Would you be open when more needs are coming our way to share data? And this is just a pledge. So having that pledge is going to be a list of signatures, but also a series of conditions under which organization might share data. An organization doing research on vaccines might say, well, I'm happy to share some effort because of a vaccine. Or basically international organizations such as Amnesty International or Red Cross or others may want to share data in terms of pandemic or other outbreaks just to help, right, get all of us collaborate faster together. At the end of the day, Data Pledge is about enabling collaboration and building trust.
You know, when people buy drinks, they're called rounds. It only works if everybody buys their round. With the Data Pledge, there's going to be companies, there's going to be governments who are more secretive than others, who are going to take those pledges, take that data, but they're not going to share what they know. Who's the policeman in this situation?
That's a very good question. In the building blocks of the Global Data Pledge, there is a creation of a governance structure that will help monitor activities and usage of that data. Today, there is open data that is available to everyone. There is no counterparties needed, and open data will always remain open, but those who pledge data will be those who would benefit from data as well. So the round has to be part of those who participate in the round.
Richard?
We're often, Amir and I, after a few months now, confronted with all those barriers in creating that pledge. And we have to recognize those barriers are there, whether it's called privacy issues, encryption of data, usage of data, the legitimacy of the use of the data. These are all very relevant questions. But the point is that at the end of the day, we're trying to benefit humanity by collaborating on data. Let's figure out at a second step how we secure in a right way that exchange of data. But let's first and foremost make sure that the people who can use the data and people who have the data can ultimately connect. Let's figure out the barriers and how we solve them afterwards. And it's true for countries, it's true for organizations, and it's true for NGOs. And that's what we're trying to initiate. That's why we call it a pledge. So it's easy to connect at the top end, and then let's figure out as we go down the issues, how we resolve them.
Gentlemen, Amir in Los Angeles, Richard in Southern Canada. So with an announcement on the Global Data Pledge at the AI for Good Global Summit. Thanks very much. Stay tuned for more from the summit, all year, always online.